Okay, Dr. Walter Martin wrote the Jehovah of the Watchtower book, uh, but although it's not listed here in the transcript, the PDF transcript, uh, I'm actually not familiar with Jehovah of the Watchtower, but I have read his excellent book, Kingdom of the Cults, which has a very long chapter compared to the other groups that he writes about in this book. A very long chapter on the Jehovah's Witnesses. And if you're a Jehovah's Witness or not a Jehovah's Witness, but would like to learn about the Jehovah's Witnesses, not a sympathetic view of it, but a factual view of the Jehovah's Witnesses, this would be a good book to look at. The Kingdom of the Cults, the chapter on the Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, so Dr. Martin observes that the anonymous 7-member translation committee, well, let me read the actual transcript here. It says, the late Dr. Walter Martin, author of Jehovah of the Watchtower and a respected authority on cults, observes that of the anonymous 7-member translation committee, at least 5 had no training in Greek. And then he goes on and quotes what Dr. Martin had said. But I want to come back to that in just a minute. There was a translation committee made up of 7, presumably 7 Jehovah's Witnesses. 5 of them had no training in Greek. The New Testament was written in Greek. The New World Translation is supposed to be a translation from Greek to English. 5 of the 7 members had no training in Greek. That's important. And it's also important to note that the 7 members of this translation committee were anonymous. They did not reveal their identities. Okay, then Dr. Julius Manti was one of the leading Greek scholars in the world and co-author of the Dana Manti Greek Grammar and a Hellenistic Greek Reader. He declares, I have never read any New Testament so badly translated as the Kingdom Interlinear Translation of the Greek Scriptures, which the NWT was based on. Excuse me. In fact, it is not their translation at all. Rather, it is a distortion of the New Testament. The translators used what J.B. Rotherham had translated in 1893 in modern speech and changed the readings in scores of passages to state what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe and teach. That is distortion, not translation. So according to Dr. Manti, they took an English New Testament by J.B. Rotherham, and I believe that is still available. I don't have it myself, but the Rotherham translation, I believe, is still available, though it's relatively, compared to some of the other Bible versions, it's very unpopular. I'm not sure why. It just isn't very widely read. They took Rotherham's New Testament in English and rewrote the English Rotherham New Testament. So, according to Dr. Manti. So, we see here many problems with the New World Translation. So back to Dr. Martin. When a Bible is translated from Greek into English, it's normally done by a translation committee. And the translation committee, it's important that the translation committee is not secret, that they reveal who is on the committee, whoever is publishing the Bible. There's some kind of a list somewheres of who was on this committee, what their academic credentials are, and what their religious beliefs perhaps as well, and religious affiliations are. Alright, so I've got some different Bibles here that I wanted to look at in this regards. The New World Translation has a 7-member committee, but it's anonymous. So that is not the ideal situation for a Bible translation. The first one I have, it's not really a translation per se, but it's the Message, which is a paraphrase, which is basically a very, very, very non-literal translation, or I hesitate to even call it a translation. But at any rate, even though it's a paraphrase and not a translation, if you look on the inside cover, and this one here is just the New Testament with Psalms and Proverbs, but on the inside cover it has a New Testament exegetical consultants, and it lists them. Dr. William W. Klein, Chairman, Denver Seminary, Denver, Colorado. Dr. Darrell L. Bach, Dallas Theological Seminary, Dallas, Texas, and so on. And then it has an Old Testament exegetical consultant for the Old Testament in a separate volume, which is Dr. Robert L. Alden, Denver Seminary, Denver, Colorado. And there's an Old Testament stylistic consultant. So even a paraphrase, such as the Message, has people who know the who are Bible scholars with their credentials listed. Now, an exegetical consultant, what exegetical means, or exegesis, it's how one will interpret the Bible to draw out of the text of the Bible what it's saying. And normally that's through a study of grammar and history. So the exegetical consultants would know Greek if they're exegeting the New Testament. So he's going to Greek scholars to learn how best to interpret the Bible. So that was the Message, and the paraphraser, the main guy on that is Eugene Peterson, but as I said, he is perhaps not a Greek scholar himself, but he's going to these professional exegetes. Next I have the New American Bible, and this is the most popular version of the Bible for English-speaking Roman Catholics. And it says right on the very first page, translated from the original languages with critical use of all ancient sources, with the revised Book of Psalms and the revised New Testament, authorized by the Board of Trustees of the Confraternity of Christian Doctrine and approved by the Administrative Committee / Board of the National Conference of Catholic Bishops and the United Catholic Conference. So that's kind of who is responsible for it. Then you turn over the Old Testament, Nihil Obstat, haven't got a clue what that means. Stephen J. Hardigan, OFM SSL, Christian P. Soroke, O Carm STD, Imprimatur, Patrick Cardinal Boyle, DD, Archbishop of Washington. The Imprimatur says, you know, the Catholic Church gives it this stamp of approval. The Revised New Testament, Nihil Obstat, Stephen J. Hardigan, OFM SSL, Censor Deputatus, Imprimatur James A. Hickey, STD, GCD, Archbishop of Washington. August 27, 1986, Revised Psalms, Imprimatur, Most Reverend Daniel E. Pilarczyk, President, National Conference of Catholic Bishops, September 10, 1991. Then you turn over, and you've got 2 pages of the Editor-in-Chief, the Committee of Confraternity of Christian Doctrine, Associate Editors and Translators, Revisers, Consultants, etc., etc., listed here with their credentials and such. Alright, so we'll pick up looking at different English versions of the Bible and the credentials behind the translators, which is lacking with the NWT, in the next video. Thanks.